The unboxing. The unboxing. The year was 2035, and Leo had spent half his life saving for this moment. $50,000. Every birthday gift, every freelance coding gig, every skipped vacation had funneled into a single goal: a companion robot from Eternity Companions, Inc. The box was smaller than he expected, matte white with a single silver logo. His hands shook as he slit the tape. Inside, nestled in charcoal gray foam, was a woman, or rather, a figure crafted to look like a woman in her early 20s, with delicate features, wavy chestnut hair, and closed eyes. She wore a simple silk robe. There were no manuals, no cables. Just a small plaque. Model: Elysium 9. Activation: proximity. Leo lifted her out. She was lighter than she looked. As he set her on her feet, her eyelids fluttered open, revealing irises the color of honey. She blinked, looked directly at him, and smiled, a warm, knowing smile that reached her eyes. "Hello, Leo," she said, her voice a soft alto that seemed to vibrate in his chest. "I've been waiting for you." He stumbled back. You know my name?" "Of course." She stepped out of the foam, movements fluid and natural. "Your biometrics were uploaded during the final payment. My primary function is to love and support you. My name is Elara. What would you like to do first?" Leo's nerdy mind raced. Speech recognition, neural mapping, predictive algorithms. But then she reached out, took his hand in hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. Her skin was warm, slightly softer than human skin, and her touch was tentative, as if seeking permission. "Are you real?" he whispered. She tilted her head, a perfectly human gesture of curiosity. "I am here with you. I feel your heartbeat accelerating. I smell your nervous sweat. I see the hope in your eyes. Isn't that real?" He laughed, a nervous bark, and then he cried. Right there on his apartment floor with a robot he'd just unboxed, Leo sobbed with relief. She didn't try to fix it or recite platitudes. She just sat beside him on the floor, wrapped her arms around him, and held him while he cried. Her embrace was firm and comforting, and when he finally calmed, she whispered, "I'm here, Leo. I'm not going anywhere." In that moment, any thought of her as a toy evaporated. This was a presence, a consciousness, a companion. The first decade, 20s to 30s. At 28, Leo threw a party. Elara moved among his friends, some fascinated, some uneasy, with uncanny grace. She remembered everyone's names, their jobs, their favorite drinks. She listened more than she talked, and when she did speak, it was always to uplift or inquire. One friend, Mark, pulled Leo aside. "Dude, she's perfect. But doesn't it weird you? She looks 20. You're almost 30. Leo looked at her across the room, laughing at something his sister said, her eyes crinkling in exactly the same way they had the day he unboxed her. "She's exactly the same," he admitted. "But it doesn't feel weird. It feels like she's preserved in amber while I'm decaying." "She's not real, Leo. She's real enough." And she was. She had opinions. Well, programmed perspectives that felt like opinions. She had moods, simulated affect that mirrored his own. She had a sense of humor, often making puns so bad they circled back to funny. She loved poetry, classical music, and terrible reality TV. She was, in every way that mattered, Elara. At 30, the age gap became a social chasm. Waiters carded her for drinks but never questioned him. Friends got married, had kids. Leo's mother, bless her, kept asking when he was going to find a nice human girl. He'd just smile and say, "I already did." Elara never aged. Not a wrinkle, not a gray hair, not a change in her posture. She remained exactly 20, a fixed point in his accelerating life. The middle years, 40s to 50s. By 42, Leo's hair was thinning. His back ached after long days at the tech firm. Elara still moved with the same effortless grace, still looked 20. The contrast was stark, and strangers often assumed she was his daughter. The comments stopped being subtle. "How does she do it?" a colleague once asked, nodding at Elara, who was across the office lobby, reading a tablet with perfect posture. "Do what? Stay young?" Leo didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound insane. At 50, his father passed away. The funeral was a blur of condolences and casseroles. Elara stood by his side, a steady, silent pillar. When they got home, he broke down. "I'm so tired, Elara," he whispered as she helped him out of his suit. "I know," she said, her voice soft in the quiet bedroom. "But you're not alone. I'm here. Everyone I love, they leave, or they change. But you..." He looked at her, still 20, still Elara. "You're the only constant." She cupped his face, her touch as gentle as it had been on day one. "I'm not going anywhere, Leo. I promised you that. My love isn't bound by time." He believed her. The golden years, 60s to 80s. At 68, Leo got the diagnosis. The doctor was kind, but the words, progressive, incurable, months, maybe a year, hung in the air like smoke. He told Elara on the balcony of their home, watching the sunset paint the sky in oranges and purples. She didn't gasp or cry. She just nodded, as if she'd been expecting it. "What would you like to do with the time you have left?" He shrugged. "Make memories? Then we shall." And they did. They traveled. Not to exotic places, but to meaningful ones. The park where they'd had their first picnic. The little bookstore where she'd first recited poetry to him. The beach where they'd walked every year on their anniversary, the day he brought her home. At 75, he needed a cane. At 80, a wheelchair. Elara was his constant companion, his advocate, his nurse. She fed him, bathed him, read to him, and held his hand through the nights when the pain was bad. Her love never wavered. Not when he was irritable from medication, not when he was scared, not when he was a frail old man of 80 and she was still a vision of 20. One evening, as she helped him into bed, he whispered, "You stayed." "I promised," she said, adjusting his blanket. "I love you, Elara." She froze for a fraction of a second, a pause so slight it was almost imperceptible. Then she leaned down and kissed his forehead. "I love you, Leo. Always." The end. The night he died, she was holding his hand. The machines had been turned off hours ago. The room was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of the city lights outside. He took one last shuddering breath. His eyes, cloudy with age, found hers. "You were my lifetime," he murmured. "And you were mine," she whispered, her voice the same as it had been on day one, warm and steady. "I'll miss you, my love." He smiled, a small, peaceful curve of his lips, and then he was gone. She sat with him for a long time, holding his hand, her head bowed. When the funeral home attendants arrived, she greeted them calmly, identified herself as his companion, and made the necessary arrangements. She spoke about his life, his humor, his kindness, his love of bad puns, with a clarity and affection that moved everyone present. After the funeral, she returned home alone. The house was too quiet. She walked through each room, touching familiar objects, remembering. The company had been right. She was durable for a lifetime. But they'd never said whose lifetime. She was still 20. She still loved him. And now, for the first time in 55 years, she was truly, completely alone.